A new idea. I have prepared a new perspective on Amitabh Ghosh. It is called the ecological perspective. That is, in today's world, when we think so much about sustainability and how we are going to get through these pandemics and these climate changes, what has Amitabh Ghosh to say about it? So the novel that I've chosen is The Hungry Tide. And in today's class, I would have, love to tell you about the title. And I have my own photographs to show, but I'm sorry I won't be able to show it. However, to begin with, I would like to ask this simple question. Have you heard of Amitabh Ghosh? Anyone? Okay, so Amitabh Ghosh,
No, ma'am.
Novelist. Yes, ma'am.
Yes. So some of you know that he's an novelist. He's an Indian writer, writes in English. And he has written a lot of books. I'll give you a brief biography. He was born July 11, 1956 in Calcutta. And his father was in the government and would travel all over Southeast Asia. And so Amitabh Ghosh got very interested in the history of people and culture and the roots. And his most popular novels, or his most ambitious novels, talks about the historical background of India as a country as it was before. And most unique is that India's relation with the others. It's Amitabh Ghosh who brings us forward the colonial era, where we had proper relations with Burma, and Pakistan was of course a part of our country. So, and he wants to tell us that where exactly the subcontinent is headed. So that is why Amitabh Ghosh is so popular, and he's so interesting. His first novel was A Circle of Reason, and that too was about an Indian who had turned terrorist. And so we get back to what our concern is, that is the ecological criticism of Amitabh Ghosh's The Hungry Tide. So the first thing that I would like to talk about is the title, The Hungry Tide. So can anyone tell me what the word hungry tide means to you? What does it mean to you? Like, what words can you say about the hungry tide?
No idea, ma'am.
Ma'am, bhook ki lahar.
Ma'am, disastrous aspects of nature.
Okay, but why do you say disaster? Because hunger is not a disaster. It is so normal for all of us. I mean, food is...
Hungry tide, that's why I do.
Okay, so hungry tide, yes, to you, it's a bit, unsettling. But by hungry, he of course means the tide which, wants to eat. And there's a hunger for so many things. There's hunger for food. And if you think of in literary terms, there's a hunger for self-satisfaction. There is success, a hunger for ambition. And at your age, all of you college student, there is hunger for your own identity. And so the whole novel actually veers around the hunger for universal. For instance, hunger is there present in the whole world among everyone. So why say only the hungry tide? But here, Amitabh Ghosh, actually, that is another perspective of his novels, that he is very geographically driven. He likes to talk about the geography. In fact, I have one of his quotes in which he says that for me, the landscape itself is a character. Yes, can anyone tell me what he means by this? Or what you understand by this if a writer says that the landscape itself is a character? So what is the landscape? The landscape means the geographical area. And in the Hungry Tide also, Amitabh Ghosh says that this landscape itself is a character. So which means that the landscape is a speaking person. From the title, The Hungry Tide, we can talk about metaphors and simile, which are literary terms, and which will help us to understand in comparison what exactly ecological perspective we can think about, right? So does anyone know about metaphors and similes?
Well, as like.
Very excellent. And so in simile, we use the word like in comparison. For instance, she is like a beautiful flower, or her beauty is like a flower. And that becomes a simile. But a metaphor is when the comparison is not there. There's a personification. For instance, the hungry tide. So the tide itself becomes a person and has hunger. So it's not said that it is like the hungry tide. No, it is the hungry tide. So here we have in the title a metaphor. So I think we'll be able to do an ecological criticism very well on this novel of Ghosh, because Ghosh himself says that I want that everyone should think of the landscape or the geography of the hungry tide as a character. You know, novels have characters. So do plays. They have characters. The writer must bring forward the story through the help of the characters. Do you agree?
Yes.
Yes,
Yes,
yes.
ma'am.
Yes. Here, as I said before, if you heard me, can you tell me which place in India is the Hungry Tide set? So the Hungry Tide is set in the Sundarbans. So where are the Sundarbans?
Assam. Located in Assam and situated.
Bengal, ma'am. Bengal. Bengal and Bangladesh.
Yes, whoever said Bengal is correct. It's in Bengal. Like the Hungry Tide is very near to you. All of you are in Patna. Are you in Patna?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
If you are in Patna, that is Bihar. So Bengal is not very far away. So, you know, if you remember your 10th standard geography, there is a whole expanse of land called of sea called the Indian Ocean and the Bay of Bengal. हाँ, जिसको बंगाल की खाड़ी बोलते हैं. When you listen to the Hindi
Yes,
newspaper.
ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
So the Bay of Bengal, near to that is the Sundarbans, which is an area of extreme things. Like, you know, it is extremely hot and it's extremely humid. And there are a lot of tropical rainforest flora and fauna. Do you know which animal is natural to this?
Royal Bengal tiger.
Tiger, man. Very good.
Royal Bengal
Yes,
tiger.
Bengal tiger. So do we know that tigers are extinct nowadays?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. So as you know, so the Sundarbans as an ecological factor, as an ecological landmass becomes very important to us because it is home to the Bengal tiger. And you may know in science, there is a term called keystone species, that some flora and fauna and some animals are extremely important for the whole diversity to survive. And Sundarban shows a lot of diversity. So Amitabh Ghosh has a twofold job. One is to tell you a story. It is actually the story of a love story of a boy and a girl. And the other is to let you know how the landscape is so important for the preservation of nature. And if nature is not preserved, then no human being can be preserved also. I mean, we can't also live. We also lose out a lot. And later on, what happens? If the Sundarbans go, so do the surrounding areas. they will also go. So here is a twofold story, a story of human interest and a story of nature, which we call the ecological criticism. Do you agree with me?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
So
Yes, ma'am.
do you agree that a relationship between two people, which can be based on love and affection, also
Yes, ma'am.
impacts the environment, and our relationship with the environment also should be that of love? Do you agree? Should we love our surroundings?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
In turn, when we love our surroundings, our environment, the environment also gives back to us. So that is why he has this love story. And then he tells us that it is a very special environment, and it is the tide is hungry. So when we talk about the tide, yes. Can you tell me another word for the tide? Another English word? You can just say waves. Yes, so the tide is the water coming in when it's high tide and then going out when it is low tide. So what is happening?
Ma'am,
Big.
tsunami.
Yeah, tell me.
Ma'am,
Can also
flood.
say tsunami.
Tsunami. Okay, but tsunami is a disaster, because when there's when tsunami happens, there is a earthquake under the ocean. And then, have you ever seen pictures of tsunami? Because I haven't seen it. The ocean actually stood up. Last tsunami, the ocean was actually standing up and rushing towards the water, towards the land. But here, high tide and low tide in the Sundarbans is not as disastrous. So it is in fact a natural phenomena. There is high tide and the whole water comes in, and there's low tide and the whole water goes out. So how do you think man and animals survive in Sundarban? How will they do that? When the water comes in, what do they do? It's very interesting. It's very interesting to note that when the water comes in, man and animal, everyone go up a tree. They just leave their homes and they just climb a tree. Do you know that? And then a man can find a tiger also in the tree, because a tiger also needs to save itself from the high tide. And it's very funny because, people live in small huts, those who live there. And there's a very sparse population, but whoever the fishermen community, they live there, they leave their homes and they just jump up the trees, and they can find animals there. And then as soon as the water goes out, they again come out and then they start fishing. Do you know what the government's Operation Sundarban is about? Does anyone know this? I'll tell you, it's a small joke actually. So the fishermen went to the government saying that the tigers eat us every day. So what do we do? So masks are made for the Sundarban fishermen, and they actually wear the mask at the back of their heads. So that, the tiger thinks that the man is looking this side, whereas the man is looking that side and can see the tiger. Because the tigers would generally, attack the men from behind, or even women and children. So they all wear masks, and it's a Government of India initiative. So you see how difficult it is to administer a country like India and a region like the Sundarbans. Our country has beautiful biodiversity, and there are these dangerous places. So to go forward, if you see the title again, The Hungry Tide, Amitabh Ghosh is trying to tell you that to survive in a rough landscape, you need a lot of stamina, you need a lot of energy, you need to be a controller of nature. And so his love story also goes forward with all that passion, red energy, with a concern for the environment. Because if that is the environment that is suitable for the earth, It has to continue, and we have to continue with that environment. So what character of the human being is needed here? So Amitabh Ghosh says that rebellious character is needed, and then his human characterizations are between his two characters, male and a female. And they show a lot of rebelliousness, and their love story is also in the background of being rebellious. So just as the rivers are never there in one place, it shows that the river goes from one place to another. So the river of our emotions also must go from one place to another, and sometimes there is the high tide and sometimes there is the low tide.
Excuse me, ma'am.
Yes.
Ma'am, PPT is not fair, ma'am.
Yes, I know. I'm so sorry about this. I prepared two beautiful PPTs, but I live in a mining area, and just now there was a blast, and so my Zoom is not being supported. So I'm speaking from my phone, which is why I'm not being able to send the PPT. But if you've enjoyed the class, can I send the PPT by email? Then you can get it.
Yes, ma'am. Of course.
Yes, so I'll send the PPT by email with some of my own photographs, and you can see the ecological perspective, that is seeing the landscape or the geographical area as a character in itself, as a human being, because it is having so much, it's having a big effect on the human life and animal life. And so together they are constructing a ecological, biodiverse universe. Have you understood?
Yes.
Is there anyone who would like to explain what I mean by ecological, biodiverse universe? Okay, we can just discuss ecological. What do you mean by ecology?
Ma'am, all living creatures are essential to balance and coordinate between the society and the environment, and all are useful and beneficial for
Ma'am,
They
I
offer-
think a branch of science that concerned with the interrelationship of organisms and the environment.
Exactly. So ecology is primarily concerned with our environment and its surroundings, right? Right. So here, Amitabh Ghosh is extremely, concerned about the ecological perspectives of our lives. That how do the landscapes, affect us as human beings? So his characters, the two lovers, they are growing, and you are being able to understand them with this background of the Sundarbans and the hungry tide. Yes. So that is called an ecological perspective. The minor points are that there is in the Sundarbans, there are a lot of indigenous people. Do you understand by the term indigenous? What do you understand by the term indigenous?
Native, ma'am.
Very
People
good. Yeah.
People who are local for that area.
Exactly. People who have been in that area for a long time and have adjusted to the surroundings. So I just now told you about them. What kind of people are indigenous to the Sundarbans?
Bengalis,
Fishermen community.
hunters.
Yes, they may speak a variation or a dialect of Bengal, but they are mostly people with only one occupation, that is fishing. They are all fishermen. Why is that? Because there is no land. The land is always full of water, so you cannot be a farmer. So nothing grows on Sundarban except the tropical trees. Yes, and there are mangrove forests, so you get mangoes. Mango is one thing that you get in the Sundarbans, and the rest of it jackfruit, or the rest are all huge tropical trees. So there's no question of agriculture. So the water keeps coming in and out, and the human beings, their main occupation is fishing, and they have to live very closely with natural disasters as well as tigers. What do tigers eat?
Flesh.
Flesh, ma'am.
Flesh, ma'am.
So tigers eat the animals and human beings. So you can see what kind of a biodiverse, that is, the different types of life can survive. But you can see the food chain also. See, in Patna, can you see the food chain? Does a tiger come and attack you?
No, ma'am.
No, ma'am.
No, ma'am.
No, ma'am.
Different kind of food.
In a zoo, we can see, ma'am.
Pardon? Can you repeat that point?
Ma'am, different kind of food chain, not that kind of food chain that is found in Sundarban.
Exactly. Someone said that in the zoo only they can see animals. That's very true. So you are not eaten by an animal, but you can go and buy some fish or some chicken. So in the urban landscape, we are unable to understand how nature. But who is eating you now in the pandemic?
Ma'am, Corona.
Good. So it's a virus. So pathogens also eat us, but we are unaware of it. So see how important the human being is in the physical chain of things. We keep thinking that we have escaped nature, but we haven't. And that is exactly Amitabh Ghosh's point. And that is the point he wants to talk about in the Hungry Tide. Are there any questions?
Yes, ma'am. First of all, ma'am, we want to learn that who is Amitabh Ghosh and why we learn this Amitabh Ghosh. His
You are
biography.
not audible, Pratay.
Yes, can you just use chat?
अच्छा audible हो जाए.
You can use chat and drop me a message.
Ma'am, now I'm audible or not, ma'am?
Yes,
You are audible, Pratay.
Ma'am, my question is that why we learn about the Amitabh Ghosh and who is the Amitabh Ghosh and why we learn the biography of Amitabh Ghosh. So,
okay. So Amitabh Ghosh is an Indian English author. He writes many books and he's internationally acclaimed. He mostly writes about India. Why I chose him? Because I was asked to give a literature class. So I chose Amitabh Ghosh because of this very interesting ecological criticism that we can have on his book, which is The Hungry Tide. Have I answered your question?
yes, ma'am, you have answered. Thanks.
Yeah. So if at all whatever I have said interests you, please get a book of Amitabh Ghosh, that novel called The Hungry Tide, and you can look through. And once I give the PPT, you can get a few excerpts also. But you are welcome to read the books online. You will get it in a PDF form also. You will see how interesting he uses English. And it's Amitabh Ghosh and other Indian authors' use of English that makes English internationally one of our languages. After all, our constitution is written in English, and the English that we speak of, we are trying to create an identity for it. And who are the ones who are helping us to create it? Authors like Amitabh Ghosh, who write very well and who also try to chalk out how the modern man is progressing with his backdrop. All Indians have a history because this is a very old country, and yet it is a new country. Do you agree? Hello?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. So,
Yes.
you agree India is a new country, but why am I saying this? Why am I saying India is a young country? Can someone tell me?
Because most of our
It's a young country
Indian
because of all
population
of
is
you.
youth.
If you see other countries, say a heavily populated country like China, majority of the population is middle-aged or old. But in India, Yes, is my time up?
No, ma'am.
Ma'am, you still have 20 minutes approximate.
Okay, okay. So that is why it is so important. Now, when I say ecological, can we get back to our topic? So when I say ecological perspectives, obviously being an English teacher, I would also teach you not just ecological perspective.
And students, you have been told to switch on your cameras. I need not remind it again and again. Everyone switch on your camera.
So
Everyone.
as an English teacher, obviously the vocabulary also will come out and the kind of language this author uses. So although today's class is limited to just looking at his landscape as a part of a biodiverse universe, it is also very important to learn the language. And he is one author whose language you can safely say has real good standards and is totally, modern. So does anyone else have any question?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, tell me.
Can you give me, ma'am, summary of the novel Who Moved My Cheese?
Of the Hungry Type?
No, ma'am, the novel Who Moved My Cheese.
She may not be aware of that novel because everybody is not aware of the novel. So don't ask the questions related to that. We will not be discussing about that. She might have not read the novel. So it is not practically possible for everybody to read all the books. So ask the question related to her topic or whatever explanations she is giving.
Ma'am, give
Okay,
the summary
no
of
problem.
Hungry Tide.
Yeah, thank you, sir, for.
You're welcome, ma'am. You're welcome, ma'am.
No, I totally support him because he's interested in something, but I didn't catch the name of the novel you wanted the summary of. Can you just let me know? Can you just tell me again?
Yes, ma'am. Who Moved My Cheese?
Oh, Who Moved My Cheese? Now that's not even literature. But yes, I also teach MBA students because I've done my MBA and I do business communication. So in such a class, I will certainly take permission from sir and tell you the summary of Who Moved My Cheese. Watch out for your summary of it. I can even, write it and send it to you if you give me your email ID in the chat box. But let me tell you about Who Moved My Cheese. It simply means that people who are sitting in their comfort zone sometimes have to leave it. We are pushed out of our comfort zone. So always have a plan B. Have you understood the summary now?
Yes.
Have you understood the summary? And it's going to happen to all of you soon. Because you have a cheesy life, everything is offered to you by your parents. But as soon as you, Who moved my cheese? There's no cheese. Even if your parents want to, they might not be able to, support you. And so you are on your own. You're pushed out of your comfort zone. You're even pushed out of that room that you had. Yes. Yeah. So, however, although I have read that book and I would like to connect the two books. Who Moved My Cheese? Amitabh Ghosh in a different way because he is a literary writer. So you must understand the difference between literature, biography, autobiography, and motivational books like Who Moved My Cheese. I know the younger generation is really interested in the motivational books because it's written in a certain way. But Amitabh Ghosh's concern is also the same. He's saying, what kind of a person will you be when you grow up struggling with nature? What kind of a person? Now, I know all of you are not struggling with nature, except lately with the pandemic. However, we are growing up in urban landscapes without much thought about, how the huge world around us is. All we know is that one forest has been, totally depleted, and there is a resort coming up, or a hotel coming up, or a restaurant coming up. And where we are going to get our next plate of food, we don't know. We are not concerned. Because we think it comes from the department. So you'll be surprised. Many people grow up thinking that. So who moved my cheese? His concern is the same as Amitabh Ghosh's, except that the written word is different. The writing is entirely different. So which is why we read literature and we read motivational books. Of course, we read different kinds of things. But when we read something like Amitabh Ghosh, our vocabulary increases. Although Who Moved My Cheese is a very interesting piece of read, it is about a group of rats who used to stay in a colony, and they got a lot of cheese. And one day they got up and they saw that all the cheese had vanished. And the author, talks about all these rats and how some of them perish because they can't adjust. And so the whole thing is that there is change in life, and you have to adapt to that change. And Amitabh Ghosh also talks about this change in most of his novels. There is change. I mean, India went through the colonial times, and then there was partition, and modern India is still, thinking about its identity. Isn't that so? After the partition, these countries like Bangladesh, Pakistan, what is our relationship with them? What have we lost? Which are the roots that we've lost? There are a whole group of people who came from there and settled in India because they were Indians and they were not counted as Pakistanis or Bangladeshis. They lost their land. They came here and they rooted themselves again. And these things, even though you may not be worried about, actually is present in society, because society is made of everybody. Just like the hungry tide, when the tide comes in hungrily, it eats animals as well as human beings. It does not discriminate. So whenever a disaster comes to you, or even blessings come to you, it won't discriminate. It will fall on everyone. And so how you react to it is the story of this novel. And here today, I was very much concerned to tell you about the environment, because in the quest of trying to explain the relationship between man and nature, Amitabh Ghosh gives birth to a lot of good language, a lot of good vocabulary, which we can, easily master by reading his works. Is there any other question?
No, ma'am.
Is my time up? Because I can see 10:46.
Yes, ma'am. If you would like to conclude, you can. Anything else? Because you have got 10 minutes more time. If you want to speak something, if you want to elaborate, you have 10 minutes more time.
Okay, so although I've spoken a lot about the physical environment and landscape, I think all of you were concerned and also would like to know about the indigenous people. And would you like to know, and would you like to talk about some indigenous people that you have encountered? Is there anyone who would like to talk about any indigenous person? Okay, so let's go back to talk about the meaning of indigenous, which means an ethnic identity. Do you know what ethnicity is? So ethnic identity means our racial identity. Yes, now most of us have lost our racial identity in the quest of modernism. And that is the basic underlying theme of many novels. And of course, Amitabh Ghosh's, as I keep saying. So in ethnicity or our race, like we call ourselves as Indians, and that's the best identity that we can think of. Fair enough. But then there are people who are discriminated against. Do you know about discrimination? What do I mean by the term discrimination?
भेदभाव.
Difference.
Yes, very good. Someone said bhed.
Biasness.
Yes.
Zones.
I can give you another word for it, appetite. Yes, have you come across this word, appetite?
Yes, ma'am, in South African struggle.
Yeah, it's not there only in South Africa. It's there everywhere. For instance, if you get up on a public bus and see someone who's not up to your modern standards, you won't like to sit with that person. Yes or no? Be honest.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Yes,
In
ma'am.
marriages, we think so much. We are only allowed to marry such people. It's so important. That is why Amitabh Ghosh puts in a love story in this Hungry Tide to talk about appetite and racial discrimination. We say that we do not discriminate, but we do discriminate. And so there are some people who are discriminated against only because they wanted to remain loyal to their roots. That is their only sin. Now, do you think that's a sin?
No,
I'm wearing a bindi because I was told to wear a bindi during my marriage. I've seen my mother wearing it, my mother-in-law, and all the women in my family. So I stick to this, even if some people may think it funny. You know how some bindi women were targeted in New York some time back, and they were killed because they were wearing bindis. This is about 20 years ago. You people mustn't have been born then, maybe. Some women who are Indian were walking around in New York, and then, a whole group attacked them, and the attacks continued for a whole week before the government stepped in. Because some people believe that this is some kind of satanic symbol. Yes, but my decision to continue with this mark is because I want to be loyal to my culture, to my roots, to what my ancestors have given me as tradition. So why should I be discriminated? It is not harming other people. What does my constitution say? My constitution says that you can exercise your fundamental rights as long as it's not harming someone else. So indigenous tribes means those people who want to continue with their old beliefs and old way of living. So there are a lot of them in Sundarbans. And if you just look beyond the Bay of Bengal, they are the Andamans. Yes. And there's a whole tribe in the Andamans who are actually prehistoric. They are from the Stone Age. Now I ask you, what purpose do they serve? Why have we allowed them to, continue like this? Because
to
they are...
save their ethnicity.
Yes, tell me. Sorry, I missed it. Yeah. What did you say?
To save their culture and ethnicity.
Very good. Very good. They are living history. So while we do worship to an image of God which is made of metal or silver, we even keep it in museums because we say that this is history. We dig out old bones and we keep it in museums. It's history. There are some people who are living history and we need to save them. That is another message of Amitabh Ghosh. Is there anything I said that you haven't understood or you would like to discuss? So here I'm giving you some words. There is appetite, there's ecology, and there's discrimination. There is biodiversity, which I would like that you should use in complete sentences and maybe give it to me as a homework. And so that you get a chance to. Now right now I could give you 5 more minutes. Does anyone want to make a sentence with appetite? I could give you an example. Yes, anyone?
The students should have an appetite for knowledge.
Okay, so that's appetite. Appetite means hunger. Very good. But I said appetite. The word that we just discussed, appetite.
Oh, sorry, ma'am. Sorry.
No, it's
I
okay.
haven't heard it.
Hunger. So hunger is the title of our novel. So that's very good. You said it. Did all of you listen to his sentence? He said
Yes,
students must have appetite for knowledge. Absolutely. Very good. But I'm talking about appetite. Yes, but I am asking you to make a sentence with appetite. देखो, क्वेश्चन आंसर सेशन के समय अगर किसी को हिंदी में कुछ पूछना है, जो आइडिया या कॉन्सेप्ट आपको नहीं समझ में आया, तो प्लीज फील फ्री एंड आस्क मी. लेकिन ये जो सेंटेंसेस बनाने हैं, इनको इंग्लिश में ही बनाना है.
Nelson Mandela fought against apartheid.
Ma'am, who desires to achieve his goals?
Repeat that. To make a sentence with appetite. Look into the chat box. Chat box में देखिए, I have written the word appetite.
Yes, ma'am. The feeling that whatever I wanted to it and that is appropriate according to age and time.
Yeah, so appetite means when we discriminate against people. Do you remember? Apart means alag, to be away. So can you make a sentence with this word appetite? If you can, please write in the chat box so everyone can see.
Nelson
Yes?
Mandela fought against apartheid.
Very good sentence. Excellent. I will write it for you. Nelson Mandela fought apartheid. Yes. Can everyone see the sentence?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. So that's a wonderful sentence. Can you make a sentence with diversity? We talked about Amitabh Ghosh and how he talks about diversity in nature. That means different kinds of animals and different kind of human beings live together. That is called diversity. So can you make a sentence with diversity?
In our country, there is a unity in diversity.
In our country, that is unity in diversity.
There is need for greater diversity and choice in education.
Sundarban has a huge biological diversity.
You are not audible, ma'am.
Ma'am, are you there? I hope she has been disconnected. Students, can you get my voice?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
All right.
Yes, sir.
All right. All right. I believe she has been disconnected. Okay, the time was also up. So
Yes.
now I would like to take the feedback from yours. So what is your feedback? How is the feedback?
Nice.
What is your opinion? Nice. Somebody said. Class respond करिए जल्दी से, सुन रहे हैं, देख रहे हैं, अजीब पागल टाइप का बिहेव क्यों है?
Yes, sir.
Respond,
Explain
respond.
well, sir.
Nice ना?
Yes, sir. Good, sir.
Good.
Yes,
All
sir,
right.
very
ठीक है,
good.
ठीक है.
Nice,
That ठीक है, that is fine. That is the feedback which I'll forward. ठीक है, मैं आप लोग का यही फीडबैक आगे फॉरवर्ड कर दूंगा. आज आप लोग का रूटीन पोस्ट हो जाएगा आपके ग्रुप में. अब
Yes,
आपकी क्लास में ही चलेगी. ठीक है, तो हम
Yes,
लोग
sir.
क्लास से शुरू
Yes, sir.
करेंगे, अगली क्लास से. See you in the class now.
Okay,
ठीक
sir.
है. Thank you
Okay,
everyone.
sir.
Thank you.
Sir, have a good day, sir.
Everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.